Together again, fresh off of our hot stove segment recorded over at Crypto.com Arena before the Kraken and Kings game over the weekend with Ryan Payton. That's Dennis Bernstein. I'm Dave Pagnotta here in Los Angeles, and this is the latest here on the fourth period, presented to you by CCM Hockey. All right, DB, we're going to touch on a coach who went from one team to another in 5 days.
Yeah.
And we're going to touch on
a record. An NHL record.
We're going to touch on both of these clubs. The Boston Bruins making a coaching change. Jim Montgomery out. Joe Sacco has come in. They've won 2 in a row since. And then yesterday, he becomes the head coach of the St. Louis Blues. As the Blues look to make some changes as well. Drew Bannister out. Montgomery in on a 5-year contract. A tough one.
Kind of a raw deal, but okay.
He's still getting paid. So
Yeah, okay,
consolation prize.
That's true.
Consolation prize. The Boston Bruins. Sean Hutchin wrote on thefourthperiod.com today a really good piece on their decision to make the coaching change, but also emphasizing that more will need to happen to push this team back in the right direction. What type of movement could we be looking at roster-wise from this group? They make the coaching change, no more excuses there, but we know they've been looking to tweak the roster and make some kind of twinkle-type move. Can they pull something off?
Yeah, well, they're looking for offense. They may actually look for the offense behind my couch back there, but they've been looking left and right. So, look, they've never replaced the offense from Jake DeBrusk.
Yeah.
They haven't gotten what they needed offensively from Elias Lindholm, but I'll be honest with you, Dave, on a championship team, he's a 2C. He's not a 1C, and they paid him like a 2C. So I think they need to find offense, but there's guys. Marchand has to be more healthy and better. Charlie Cole has to be way better. Pavel Zacha has to be better. It's been a group effort on why they've been so poor offensively. I think they're still decent enough defensively, and we even addressed what's going on with Swayman in net. So there's things to fix there. And look, the shortcut is to change the coach. You replace a coach with a 715 points percentage guy for a guy who's an assistant, who's been there, who's been a head coach before. But again, it's going to be up to Don Sweeney to try to figure out how he gets the offense going in concert with Joe Sacco.
They'd like to be able, as you mentioned, to find that offense somewhere that they lost from Jake DeBrusk, but it's going to be difficult. They don't have a ton of cap space to play with. That's the other thing that's part of this. So whether it's a Coyle, a Zacha, a Geekie, we know Trent Frederick has generated some interest this season. They've got to find ways to swap out the dollars in order to bring in some offensive help. We'll see if that can pull that off. We're going to continue to monitor that because that's something that they've been looking at, as we mentioned, for a little while here. Shifting over to St. Louis, they make their coaching change. Different scenario. Boston's in a playoff spot, or right in the thick of things. The St. Louis Blues are not. They're way behind the 8 ball. They're behind a lot of people's predictions, myself included. I thought they would be part of a wild card discussion, but they're not there yet. The injury to Robert Thomas certainly didn't help. He's back. But what else does this team need? They only have 4 players, DB, in double digits in scoring.
Well, they need their internal players to play better, number one. But I think that Thomas, that's the difference between Boston and St. Louis. When you take a guy like Thomas out of the lineup, that the team really runs through him offensively, and now he's back. Now you can afford, if you're Army, to say, oh, let me wait here. Like, I changed the coach, different system, my best player's back. Maybe that'll get us some traction over the next 7 to 10 games. If not, if you get to game 30 and game 35 and you're still struggling offensively, I think you have to look some other options. Maybe down the middle, maybe a 2-3 center or a scoring winger as well.
Yeah, I think that's certainly something that they would look at. I know for some reason Colton Parayko's name started popping up again. We're guilty of that.
We contribute to that.
In past seasons.
Sorry,
far now.
Colton, but that's the business.
Yeah. On the bright side, we haven't heard much about him, at least concrete stuff anyway, right now. Because I think they are looking, an Army is looking to add some offense to this group. They've got about $5.5 million in cap space. They're willing to make moves. They have been riddled a little bit with injuries on the back end as well. But they're 30th, DB. They're 30th in the National Hockey League in goals for per game. And Doug Armstrong and Alex Steen want to address that at some point. That's going to be something as well to take a look at as the St. Louis Blues. I mean, look, in past seasons, it's defense. And there are some teams that would still love to shore up their blue line, but we're noticing more and more teams looking right now to find ways to supplement their offense.
It's hard to score.
And add extra scoring.
And I'll say this, if they're that aggressive with the coach, where you fired a coach after 22 games where you thought the guy, you got to be that aggressive with your roster, right? Is this the only, look, it could be very well happen. Monty's done it before. He comes in, changes paradigms, plays a lot better. Maybe they're hoping for a reboot of 2019 where they replace the coach and they won a Stanley Cup. But right now, if you're going to be that aggressive with the coach, please be that aggressive with your roster.
A team that's trying to be aggressive right now, or at the very least trying to light a fire under some of their guys' butts, the New York Rangers. Now, we had heard over the weekend and on Sunday that Maybe they're starting to make the rounds. They're starting to explore the trade market a little bit. Curious as to what that may be. And then Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet on Monday this morning coming out there saying it's not only Trouba whose name's out there, but Chris Kreider, his name out there as well. Kreider has 2 more years left in his contract after this season. Trouba has 1. They both have some no-trade protection with a 15-team list each. They've tried moving Kreider before. They've tried moving Trouba recently, and that hasn't worked out. Are you surprised, A, that Kreider's name is out there right now, and B, are you surprised that they would send this message out there?
Well, I would say nothing ever surprises me when you hear names, right? Because everybody can be traded. But Kreider does have 9 goals. And Dave, my point is, you mentioned the contract, a $6.5 million AAV.
Yeah.
He's got 9 goals. He's probably going to score 30 anyway. He'll get hot. Like, where are you going to get the value? Like, they're trying to win a cup. I picked them to win a cup. I think you picked them to go to the cup final.
Yeah.
You're not if you're trading this guy, you're going to trade him for futures and a rebuild. You're not going to get a comparable talent at that price. So I'm surprised. I'm not surprised about Trouba. They tried to do it before. He's basically a third-pair defenseman in New York. But that's very difficult to trade a guy that price tag slotted in the lineup at that number. So I think it's just a way for management and ownership to use the media to get this team going. You're not going to fire the coach. You're not going to trade Panarin or Shesterkin.
Yeah.
Right? So what's the other move you can make? You can go to a meeting and say, oh, yeah, guys are available. And the guys in the room get a little edgy, and maybe they play a little bit more edge. It has to improve. The 5-on-5 play recently, they've been upside down with respect to Corsi and all the advanced statistics. It hasn't been good against Calgary the last couple of games. So management has a right to be upset about their performance. But, Dave, it's not like they're 3-12-1 here.
Right.
They still are in a playoff spot. They're going to make the playoffs. They could still win the division. But there's some dissatisfaction in New York, and I see why.
12-6-1, 2 points back of Washington for 3rd in the division. This is a team that, as you said, you have them as cup champs. I have them going to the final. I have them winning the division. This just shows you the competitiveness and what the expectations are at MSG.
Yes.
It's up here. It's all the way. It's past. It's up
Win
there.
now.
And if they are going to make any types of moves, again, like you said, they're not future moves. They're going to be making moves that are going to support the roster now for a cup run. So could this simply be lighting a fire under their butts?
Yep.
And if they don't respond, then at least Drury has some options available to him, because there's no question that teams are going to be inquiring about some of these guys. Shifting to a team that made the Stanley Cup final last year, was 1 win away, a couple goals away from winning the Stanley Cup, the Edmonton Oilers. Mark Spector of Sportsnet had a good interview today with Stan Bowman, their GM, who wasn't there when the roster was constructed this summer, but is responsible for it now. Now, he basically said that the underlying numbers are suggesting things are going to shift. He doesn't want to wait too much longer. He thinks the defense is a lot better than we've seen so far on the ice. But this is a team that's kind of struggling at both ends, even though they've now catapulted themselves back into a wild card spot. They're going to make a move at some point this season. They're going to add to this team. We think the blue line, maybe it's some depth in their bottom 6. When's the right time for this team to pounce?
I would say another 10 to 15 games, probably halfway mark of the NHL season, Dave, because you mentioned they're in a playoff spot. And remember, a lot of guys have underperformed, or like Arvidsson, hurt again, unfortunately. Zach Hyman out of the lineup but hasn't performed. Jeff Skinner's been on the 4th line. The moves they've made haven't really paid off. But when I look at this team, and you're talking about the blue line, maybe it's a David Savard from Montreal, because Tampa did it once, won a championship. Maybe it's a Mike Matheson. But I think you really got to pump the brakes. I think one of the reasons you do is because we saw this act last year, where they played even worse. They changed the coach. They went to a cup final. And you know the offensive players around Connor and Lena are going to start to produce. So I think that if you want to add to this team with the odds of winning a Stanley Cup and winning that 7th game, you make a move on defense, probably on the second pair right side.
They're battling some injuries right now. That'll be addressed by about a week from now. We'll have Hyman and Arvidsson back in the lineup consistently. Skinner will continue to get bounced around until he finds his groove. But I agree. I think it's defense, but you can wait. And they don't have the luxury of having a plethora of cap space.
They don't.
So that's also going to factor into when they make a decision.
Right.
Dennis, Dave, here in LA, catch us all week on the 4th period as we continue to give you the latest presented by CCM Hockey.